And welcome to Spaminar, the Society of Prop Managers webinar series for live theater prop professionals. I'm Ben Homan, SPAM member and props director at the Utah Shakespeare Festival. SPAM, short for the Society of Prop Managers, got its start back in 1994 when a small but mighty group of prop folks in the Midwest came together to tackle shared challenges and make sure props had a seat at the table alongside other production departments. Fast forward to today, when we're a thriving group of over 150 professional prop managers and educators from theaters, opera companies, and schools, all connected through an international network. We share resources, swap tips, troubleshoot problems, and support each other with everything from safety to ongoing education. Like our past seminars, tonight's session is a pay what you can. Any donations go directly to supporting these programs and our annual grants for early career prop professionals. If you're able to chip in, we'll drop the link in the chat. Every bit helps, and we're super grateful for your support. Just a heads up, live transcription is on for today's webinar, so you can follow along in real time. And don't worry if you missed anything, we're recording the session and we'll share it later on our YouTube channel. As we go along, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We'll save some time at the end to go through them. Now it's time for the good part. Whether you're here to learn all about props lists and how to use them, or you're simply curious about how other prop managers organize their information and how important the list is to the process, you're in the right place. So let's talk all things prop list. We have an incredible panel of prop managers here tonight. I'd like to welcome them. To kick things off, could each of you introduce yourselves and tell us where you work?
Hello there. My name is Kat. I am the Property Stock and Technical Coordinator at the University of Michigan.
I'm Sarah Harris, and I am currently a freelance properties designer slash manager and scenic designer based in Minneapolis, but formerly the properties manager for the Phoenix Theater Company and Stages St. Louis.
Hey, my name is Faith Boucher. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the prop supervisor for Arizona Theater Company.
Hi, I'm Liz Bear. I'm the props manager for the resident ensemble players and the Department of Theater and Dance at the University of Delaware.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. So we're going to start with just a little roundtable about kind of like how each of you creates the prop list for a show. Because we met about a week ago to go through the seminar, and I was really surprised by all the different ways that this kind of process happens. So, Kat, why don't you tell us about how you get your list made?
Yeah, absolutely. So I come from a mostly summer stock background where things have to get done very quickly, fast, dirty, done is better. A lot of the spaces that I've worked at, we would do a show a week. So what my process usually starts with is I will go and read the script and I will go and highlight all the important things that I deem as a prop, either set dressing or whatever, and I will go and highlight that um, in certain colors, which you will see later on my prop list that I have color coded on my list specifically. Um, and then I will go and input them onto my prop list. And then I'll usually have a conversation with the director saying, are there anything other than the things that I've put on this list that you see for your vision for the show? And then I will add that to my props list, and then I will share that with the stage management, and we will work together to keep that updated on what is rehearsal and what is real, so that when we get into the space in the next like 3 or 4 days, we both are on the same page about what is happening.
Okay, cool. Sarah Harris.
Okay, I'm gonna just share my screen so I can have a little show and tell here. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Great. So this is just sort of an example from when I did waitress in Phoenix. I've sort of props lists have sort of evolved over the years. I used to be a little more like having more categories and color coding everything and kind of categorizing based off of like what's done, what's still needs to be done. But I just kind of streamlined it because it just felt like it got like a little too intense. And for me, the props list is mainly about how I organize things in my brain and how things need to get done and any questions I have for the show. And then also communicate to the team what is all in the show. And I've worked mainly for musical theater. So I've learned one tip is that instead of, or not just like scenes, I also put in the musical numbers because choreographers don't really speak in scenes, they speak in what song it's in. So that has kind of helped streamline that process of like we're referring to the same thing. And I used to have like a separate notes and questions. Now I kind of put it into one list. And just so that it's like as simple as possible for people to read and understand what's going on. So this is just the basic like breakdown. I have page numbers. If it's something that we see at the top of show, that's sort of before we get into the scene, and then as you get into the scenes, you can see the page numbers. And then the prop, and then if it's to a specific character, I have that listed. And then I go into details for it. I used to have a column for like the number of something, but now I just put in the details. So this is 24 pies total. And then the notes and questions are usually like my preliminary props list will be like, this is what I want to ask people, like, and then is it a crossover? So like these things are scenic items, but I keep them in the list since they kind of move around like a prop so people know that they exist, but that if they have questions, they need to go to the right department for it. And then I'll often have just like a side column that I don't print. That's just my own notes. And when I do a preliminary list, I'll do budgeting in side columns as well, just kind of what I think things will cost and then kind of total it out and see where I'm sitting budget wise. This show was kind of unique because there was a lot of diner business that had to happen. So I had a separate list that was just diner business. So it was like, what's on the wire racks? What's on the pie racks? What's on the rolling cart? What's on the tables? But then I actually left the job in the middle of this. So I made sure that the person taking over for me knew exactly where things were at when I left. And then from there, I usually create a to-do list that I categorize what all needs to happen. So I'm constantly keeping track of the things that I've ordered to make sure that they're coming in and I take these off the list when they come in. And then what do I need to buy? What do I need to build, alter, paint? And then I can just move things around. And this is how I track how things are done. Um, so I think a lot of people track all that in their full list, but my brain just it's easier for me to just have it on like one sheet of paper. Or it can go on the back of the paper. That's pretty much it. And then I create for stage managers, I just create a PDF where I've taken away the notes column and I put status instead. And I'll let them know this is something that you don't need in rehearsal. It's just a scenic dressing thing. This is a stand-in thing. It's not the real thing. This is the real thing. So they know when they're going into rehearsal what is real and what's not real. So they know what to give notes on if it's just a stand-in. They don't have to say it needs to look different. And then just kind of emphasizing to them that they need to let me know if things change or if things get cut. Because sometimes people don't really communicate that and you're working on something and then it got cut a while ago. So that's kind of we could talk about the rehearsal process later, but that communication process between stage management team and our shop is always very important. So yeah, I just create PDFs off of this and put that and send that out to the team. I don't have a list that other people can.
Cool. Faith.
So I will usually go through the script first, and I usually read through it twice, pretty similar to how Kat does it. And I try and have at least a meeting with the designer and director separately and then together. But it is a little challenging, so oftentimes we'll just do it at the same time. I think most important is getting, sorry about the cat, getting the kind of working practices sorted out and who expects when they ask for a blue teapot, if they expect one blue teapot or if they're okay with a blue teapot and a green one and maybe an orange one just for fun. But that's just a more of a communication based thing, less about the list.
Good. Liz, how do you create your list?
So pretty much the same as everyone in that you work through the script, make your list. There have been a few occasions, far between, where a designer has given me a list that they prepped, but pretty much all the time we're generating the list and sharing it with designer, director, or stage managers.
Cool. So I guess Utah's a little unique. We do a lot of shows all at once. This coming season, we're doing 8 shows. 6 will open in early July. The other 2 will open in late July. So we're doing a lot all at once. So we require all of our directors during the preliminary design process to create a prop list of all the things that they want for the show, and the designers to turn in a dressing and furniture list. I take those 2 lists, put them into the prop list, and then go through the script and sort of verify if there's anything that I notice in the script that's not the director nor the designer sent in. I will basically have an email conversation with them to verify, hey, this is in the script. Did you miss it? Or are you not using it or whatever? I think those basically 3 pieces of information and sort of create the prop list. Um, uh, but I do read through the script and notice things, but like we require the director and designer to actually turn those things in, so that they're kind of leading the charge. Um, Cool. Okay, so now we're gonna go back. And Kat, do you have a list to share? So we're just gonna kind of share a version of our list and kind of talk through the process of kind of how we use it, um, so people can see kind of different options. So, Kat, take it away.
So this is an older list of mine from a production of Clue that I did. Um, and you can see my color coordination, basically my rules. I Frankenstein this list sort of from a professor that I had in college and used it to sort of fit my needs and the needs of the theaters. But you can see on my color coding is pretty clear so that I can hand this to a director or a designer and be like, this is how I feel about these things. If it's different in your head, then please let me know. And it's also easy for stage managers because I work with a lot of student stage managers, and this is very clear to them, the color coding. They can be like, well, what does this orange mean? It's a hand prop. And they can just go straight back and forth to what that need is. I also have a character breakdown if who the prop usually comes in on with or uh sorry, have to forgive me, my brain is like a fog today. um if it leaves with a different person, what page it's on, and then any notes that I have for the original read through. After the first sort of uh giving out to the director and stage management, this version of the list doesn't really get touched anymore. Um, it basically is just like the cheat sheet. And then when we are done with it, it's it's not used again because we move so fast. They basically just give me notes based off of this list that they get originally, and then by the end of the week, um, I have like a written on a whiteboard to-do list of what needs to get done. And the stage management at the end of the day always come and check in with me at that shop. So they are checking in and being like, this, and this needs to get done. Great. Put it on the board. Done. I'm also usually working as a team of one. So my list is not really meant for other people. It's really meant for me. Um, because I am just me. This doesn't have to communicate anything other than the basic information.
Cool. Awesome. Sarah, do you have other things to share?
Yeah, I can just go back. Of course, I like jumped the gun and like shared it all my last go over, but I just thought of something that I didn't share when we were supposed to just say how we come up with the list initially. Oh, I thought that one. Be sure to sharing in the right screen. So when I go through the script initially, I actually create a notes document for myself that sort of highlights the activity and I capitalize anything that I consider in the prop world. And this for me creates like a basis where then I can just create my spreadsheet and add all of these capital things and I put like the page number as I go. And so I don't have to like go into the script every time. Usually I can just go back to this document and see the context of things if I like um like, okay, what was the context of how this was used? So this is from a different show that I'm currently doing. That's a new work that's constantly changing, but um, you can see how I highlight things, and then I'll turn that into the list that I showed. I thought it was interesting that Kat, you sort of put a prop on every page that it's used on. And I'll just like repeat props when they're used in the scenes, and I'll just put in the notes that it's a repeat. But I do list it again as a separate thing. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that you sort of streamline your list so you don't have to list the same thing if it's used like in six scenes over and over again. Um, but yeah, I think I kind of went over mainly like how I categorize this and everything. And then I do use Google Sheets for my props lists. And then from here I can just highlight whatever whatever columns I want to create a PDF, and then I'll create a PDF, and I will usually, select cells, and then I'll do it just to the width. So it just kind of, this is why my columns have gotten like this, because it just feels like a good amount to fit on a portrait page. So that's why I've streamlined it down to, and then especially in musical theater, because you just end up with so much that like when they already have like 8 pages like this, like if I were to have more, it would be probably have to be landscape and would get less on a page and it just goes on forever. Um, so yeah, that sort of covers most things.
Cool. So, again, Utah Picture Festival, a little weird. So because we have so many different stage management teams, once the list is generated, we actually turn our list over to stage management, and it's a shared document, and it's a living document, and stage management actually takes it over as soon as rehearsal begins and updates it on a daily basis, if they can, but by the end of every week, they can't go home on Saturday night after rehearsal until the prop list is updated. And then we basically save an archived version at the end of each week so we can refer back to it. We have a numbering system where if it's a practical, it gets a P in front of it. If it's a consumable, it gets a capital C. If it's a costume piece, it gets capital C O S T. If it's a weapon, it gets a W as part of the numbering system. And we have a whole system for numbering, so all the numbers make sense. Because we actually have little tags we put on every single prop when it goes to rehearsal that says the show it's for, the number of the prop from the prop list, and a brief description, or if we have questions. It all goes on this little tag that attaches to every prop that we send over to rehearsal. But on this first page, once you put those numbers in, they automatically feed 4 additional tabs. So all the consumables end up on a single page that someone can look at. All the costume pieces end up on a page that the costumes can look at. All the weapons go onto a page, and all the practicals go onto a page. So Electrics has access to those. Um, the other thing that stage management does is as things go into rehearsal, we have this received column, and they're all drop downs. So they can say, this is a show prop. This is a rehearsal prop. This is not needed for rehearsal, so it's like dressing. I think Sarah mentioned that. Um, if it's cut, it goes purple. And if it's added, it's like bright green. And so by the end of every week, they need to basically update all of their received information so that so we can easily look at the list and see what's been added because it's really bright, or if things have been cut, they're just dark purple. And then at the end of the week, anything that was cut the week before gets a line through it, but it stays on the list until we get to opening. Um, but added basically then goes into rehearsal prop or show prop, things like that. So it's updated on a regular basis, so we can go in and look at it pretty easily. And then the prop shop actually has a whole set of columns over here that we can hide. Stage management can look at that. We don't really care, but it's a repeat of the item, our budget estimate, what we've actually spent on it, how much we think we're going to spend on labor, and all of our notes for the props. So it's a way to kind of keep for a long time we were keeping two separate documents, and every time they would, at the end of every week when they would publish their new prop list, we'd have to go in and add things to our prop list, and it just got to the point where it was like so confusing. So it's all a living document that we just kind of share and work together with, and it has worked much better the last several years, having it set up like this. Oh goodness. And being able to just kind of work back and forth as the rehearsal process goes on and gets updated on regularly. So, uh,
Hey Ben, is the director also able to add stuff to this, or is it just the stage management team?
once we get into rehearsal, it is just the stage managers who manage the list. But directors like they can look at it and we can talk about it at production meetings and things like that. But basically, the control of the list is stage management, and then if we go in and like make changes, we'll put them in a different color. So stage management can, like, if we have a question or some things that we think might be like not updated in the list, we can be like, I think this is the real thing. If not, let me know. We'll use a different color in the list. So stage management can see those notes. But basically, once it goes to stage management, they're the only ones who can update the list.
Cool. Yeah, I recently had a director that wanted like a working document so that she could just go in and answer questions like in an additional column. And I hadn't really had directors like want to do that before. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay, Faith, you got it now?
I'm ready. All right, so my props list at first is a little overwhelming to look at. That's just based on the colors, I think. But I use it's a pretty public facing list, if that makes sense. So it is in the document for, or it's in the Dropbox for everybody to look at. So I've got the full design team and show dates up at the top here. We've got a new stage management team, or like new members of the stage management team every show. And as well for my crew, this helps us to just know exactly who is involved in the production, so you don't have to go in the contact list, things like that. And we are a two-city operation, so I've got all the important dates down here, and that this entire section is just at the top. And that's just to make it easier. We've got one show running up in Phoenix, and then we're in another show in rehearsal in Tucson. It can get a little overwhelming. Currently, this is set up for Cloud Cuckoo Land, which is a great book, but not a show I've actually done. But I then divide things. First is things that are preset on stage and will stay on stage. For those that have been around, I've taken a lot of influence from the previous props list seminars. And the numbering system in particular, it starts with 1,000 to 1,100. That's all dressing. And then as the act and scenes progress, that will then affect the numbering list. There's a better explanation, I think probably on the YouTube. And then I also heavily rely on the conditional formatting and data validation. So my data validation tab is here. And this is just a little touch point for myself. Ideally, nobody else is looking at this, but it has all my hex codes for the colors as well as for the actual list itself. Then the status is over here. This column here changes the most, and stage management also has access to this list. So ideally, they're updating it in the room as things are changing. So if this rubble pile is all of a sudden complete, you can hit that drop down and it'll change colors there. And that is just pulled directly from the previous Excel Spaminar. The formula are actually out of date. So this is my data validation formula here, and feel free to copy that whoever wants to. And then my conditional formatting is over this way. And I've got all the rules set up on this side. And like I said, they do start in Excel, but then we quickly move and put it online, which affects things. I haven't found it too bad, quite honestly. But I'd say my list is kind of middle of the road in terms of complexity. And I really like to be able to scroll through and see, oh, this scene has a lot of hand props, or this scene has a lot of consumables. And then obviously bright red is that we are holding on answers from the room. So it makes it easier for me to say, like, I need to check in about the maps and plans. This system also allows me to create sublists for myself or stage management. This next one, the tech list down here, is going to be a lot of red. This has not been updated, but I can see for the show in particular, it had a whole lot of tech that was like pretty general in its description. And because they were all so important, I just said, you know what, shift everything over there. And those two lists are connected. So when you edit one, the other will change and keep things rolling in terms of just consistency across the three lists. I then also have a number and class section here. The classes are up at the top. And those, because they don't change as much, I've frozen them at the top of the list. And that's just for the stage management team so they can see what things are as they move down the list and they won't get too lost, hopefully. The stage management notes section used to be an action, and I found it for my team and myself to be a bit repetitive. And I usually put the action somewhere in the notes anyway. But I've changed it to a stage management notes so we can have little discussions when things don't necessarily warrant going into the report or it needs to happen quickly. We can both edit this at the same time because it is on Dropbox. Quite honestly, it doesn't always happen. In an ideal world, it would be an everyday, both of us updating thing, but everybody gets busy and things like that. But it's a good jumping off point, I've found. I try and update and change my lists once a year. I'll change the master list essentially, just to make sure it's still giving me everything I need. But I'm pretty happy with how the list is now, but I think, 2 years from now, it's definitely going to look a little bit different.
Cool.
That's me.
Awesome. Liz.
Hello. So, in terms of complexity, mine is probably the worst. Um, I use a system that I developed in Airtable because my prop list functions as my like brain for the show. I deposit all of the information in one place, and so I know it's all there where I can find it. I when before I developed the system, copying things between multiple lists, sometimes things get left off, or I just needed to make sure that everything was always going to be there and nothing fell through the cracks. So the Airtable list looks daunting. It's not as daunting as it seems. The thing with Airtable is you can have different views of the same spreadsheet. So on the left-hand side of the screen, everything listed there is a view of the spreadsheet. And basically, that's just an edited version of the columns to make that view. So I have this simple print view for the stage managers that is the most edited down version of just the most basic info. There's a view for the directors that includes some of the visual information as well. And one for that I share with our lighting team for lighting and effects. And then all of the rest are things that I use in managing the show. And I'm not going to go through everything, but there's a lot here, a lot of columns, but being able to sort the view to edit what you need to see when you're doing whatever task you're doing, whether it's budgeting or making a task list. So I can share a link from this to any view that someone outside of Airtable can view, just like a website. So this is what the director view looks like when I share that link with them. I also have set up a little bit of a stage manager dashboard where it has the basic stuff and the links to the forms that I have set up. So they can use this form to add a prop to the list and they just fill out whatever information they know. And then we fill in the rest as we go. And then it automatically goes into the list, the master list. They can also add questions and put in the question what prop it's related to, who it's for, if it's for the director or for me or whoever. So there's a lot of color coding, a lot of different things in here. that tell me different things. This status column just tells me where in the process that prop is, if it's cut, if it's done, waiting for something. The rehearsal status is the rehearsal item, whether that is the show item or a rehearsal prop, or they don't need a rehearsal prop, um, that sort of thing. The character and type is color coded so that lighting and furniture show up as different colors and effects and scenery. And then all of the characters are listed. Um, One of the nice things about Airtable is you're able to put images directly into the list. So you can put the designer's research, you can put the design info, all that kind of stuff. And I've also built in to be able to keep track of rehearsal notes in there, and then sort of when a show is has a lot of paper props or a lot of weapons, there are lists that are attached to the main list where I can separate out and add additional info about those without having to deal with all of the columns in the big spreadsheet. The other great thing about Airtable is it has a gallery view. So whatever column you set it to show, the research images or the design info, you can scroll through just the visual pictures, and that's helpful for looking at things with the designers. I also have set it up so that I can do calculations on consumables and build things where I can put in the pieces that I need to build and how many pieces, and then have it calculate the cost of those things. And then that gets put into the main list that I can use for budgeting. And the same thing with consumables. And it also allows me to run numbers on different things. And then I tell it I want to use this one, and that's the one it uses in the main list so that I can compare numbers on different options. And that's probably as deep into that as I should go right now.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's jump to some questions, and then we'll kind of go from there. So Deb asked earlier, what about props that are discovered in rehearsal? Do you all get them from the rehearsal reports and add them to the list? Um, uh, Anyone can jump in and say,
Yeah, I've
I
always taken it from reports. Yeah, and added it myself.
Faith?
Sorry, I got excited.
Yes,
I
sorry.
recently had a really great conversation about stage management with this. Molly Heil, one of like our more resident stage managers, absolutely excellent. And she and I have developed a system of, well, we started working off the system of the props that are most important go at the top section of the props in the rehearsal report. Um, so if it's like, oh, we have an additional cake and an additional stool, but like we really need the stool and nobody really cares about the cake, the stool will go above the cake, even if it's later in the show. And I found that to be a really great kind of unsaid but pre-organized organizational hack, I guess. And also lets me know how the room is doing in itself. But we do usually pick it up from the room or the report, or a text message if something is very urgent.
Okay. Yeah.
I, even though I
Yeah.
have the form for them to add things to the list, um, I ask that they put it in the report also so that it's all there and everyone else has the information as well.
Yeah. We get notes in the report, but then stage management also updates the list, like with cuts or with ads. But we ask for it to be seen in both places because everybody gets the report every day. And only a certain number of people know where to go find the list. If it's available, but it's not as easy to find. So we get it both ways. Kat?
But oh, sorry. I'll let Kat go first. I had a question for you.
go go ahead, Sarah.
No, you go, Kat.
Oh, my the way that I usually did it was very personal because the summer stocks that I worked at, we all lived on the same plot of land, so we were all like feet away from each other. What usually would happen is that stage management in the morning, or after the rehearsals at night, would print out the reports and they would put them all in our mailboxes. And in the morning, all of the heads of shops would go and get their report and sit together at a table at breakfast. And we would all talk about the report um, with the stage management team at the time. So we basically have like a small production meeting every day. And then I would talk to stage management and be like, what if this is highest priority for you that you need in rehearsal today? And then I would focus on those things specifically.
Oh,
I've
interesting.
been finding it interesting to compare the lengths of processes and how
Yeah,
that impacts the lists and how they're used. Like Ben starts way ahead because he has multiple shows going at the same
yeah, I
time.
have been.
I start fairly far. I'm usually on the show 2 or 3 months before rehearsal starts, at least. And then we have like a 3 or 4 week rehearsal process.
When when I came to the University of Michigan, it was a huge change for me to have weeks in advance. Even when I worked for Utah Shakes for the short time that I got to, it was a huge difference to me to not be like, you have all this time. I have to do things in a week. That's crazy.
Right.
I am curious, Ben, with stage management editing your list. Lots of times notes that come out of rehearsal for me are like stage management or the director trying to like solve a problem. And a lot of the conversation we have is like, tell me what the problem is, and then we can come up with solutions. Because sometimes they'll say they need something because they've decided that that's the solution to a problem that they have, but it's not necessarily like the best solution. So you end up like going through this process of like, oh wait, you don't actually need this chair. It's just that you had this problem with the chair that existed and you were trying to solve that problem by requesting a different chair. How do you address that like before they add it to the list?
So generally most of the list updates generally happen at the end of the week. So
Okay.
yeah, and we have lots of discussions with stage management about how to frame the notes. Again, yeah, tell us the problem. Don't offer a solution. Like let's get a chance for us to all think about it and come up with there might be multiple solutions or whatever. So we asked them to like, yeah, let us know what the problem is with the current thing. So we can then talk to the designer and get the director involved and like figure out what our best course of action is. But I would say most of they don't put stuff on the list necessarily like every single day. A few of them try to get a jump on it, but we normally have a couple days to talk about things before they end up getting put on the list.
I'm always having the conversation of tell me the problem and we'll find the solution. Don't tell me the solution.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing about all of this is the list is a tool for communication. It
Yeah.
does not preclude you from going to the stage manager or going to the director or going to the designer and still having a conversation about any item. It's just a way to keep all the information kind of organized in a way that everybody kind of understands what they're looking at. But you should not just use the list and not still communicate with people. That would
Yeah.
be a bad process. So it's just a tool. It should not replace actually having conversations about situations.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a question about like how you decide if something is like more of a scenic item or a costume item or something. Like it's about the discussion and the initial design process. You just meet meet with people and discuss. This is I always meet with the TD. We go through the whole design. I said, this is you, this is me. Like some things are very clear, and then some things could be either, and then some you just do because you don't have that much and you're gonna help them out and they have a lot to do. So you just get to agree on that. And once you agree on that, then you can put that information in your list so that everybody knows if they have a question about this item that Scenic has agreed to cover that. I do always follow up with an email when I have these in-person meetings with people that states all of these things so that it's all written so that when we if we differ on opinions of, oh, you said you would do that, we can go back to it or to it. Because I have had a couple moments where people have agreed to something and then down the line they're like, oh no, you said you would do that. It's like, let's refer back to our notes.
Totally.
Yeah, I have similar conversations with the TD and with costumes about all of those crossover stuff and things. There's some things that typically fall on one side of the line or the other, and then some things will be dependent on who has skills in an area or time to do something. In our shop, I tend to take on a lot of fabric stuff and help the scene shop with some of the fabric stuff. And then they take on metalworking stuff sometimes for me because I don't have a metalworker on my staff.
Yeah, we have kind of a breakdown for costume crafts and props, and also for like scenery and props as like a starting point. Like scenery always builds the tree. We always put the leaves on it. In costume crafts, it gets even crazier. They're in charge of parasols. We're in charge of umbrellas. And it's a very very detailed list, but it's kind of a starting point. So we kind of know where to start.
Handkerchiefs. Who
And then
does
every
the
once in a while, it's
handkerchiefs?
like, yeah, it's like, oh well, no, we can take that on or whatever kind of thing. But again, it's about communication. Faith, can you spend just a minute talking about data validation?
Oh my God. I could spend 10. I really like my data validation. I saw somebody say it was a way to make the drop-down lists. And I think it is one of the things it does really well. But essentially it is and I don't want to teach anybody how to suck eggs, but it is just a way of telling Excel like when a box says rehearsal prop, then turn this box from this box green. And that is a combination of, oh no, am I frozen?
Nope, you're good.
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Nobody was moving is really hard to tell.
Listening.
Um, and so it's a combination of then the conditional formatting will kick in, and then it'll actually engage in the color coding system. There is a really good Spaminar. I think it's called like Excel isn't scary or like spreadsheets and how to do it. And I would thoroughly recommend that one. I learned a ton. And it was from a while ago, which is why I just showed my formula. So hopefully whoever wants to institute this can then use both of these videos. But it's a little finicky, I will say. But once you get it working, I found it really helpful. And I also think it just like looks it's like kind of, I don't know, it's a little flex. I've definitely tried to up my Excel game. But I think it makes it a lot easier so you don't have to like go through and change everything or like you have stage management can pick only these sets of words. They're not saying we kind of like it, but we 90% hate it. They're saying it's a rehearsal prop now. And it just makes communication a little bit easier.
Cool, awesome. I think we've kind of answered. Isabel asked about using Google Docs instead of Excel. A little bit depends on your theater, what software they have, ease of use, ease of communication. Like if it's cloud-based, Google generally is a little bit easier than unless you're using Microsoft Teams, that kind of stuff. But Airtable, all that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of options. It kind of depends a little bit on the theater you're working in and the communication styles. It's kind of like people using Google Drive versus Dropbox, all those different kinds of systems. Talked a little bit about if things are props or scenery or things like that. Um, Having images is great. Liz, do they actually use your form for rehearsal, like to add props and stuff like that?
Our current ASM has been using the form. It's been working out really well. They still put things in the rehearsal notes just to be a data trail, but they do use the form to add things. And I get an email notification when they add them. So I always know when they've made that change.
Okay. Um, Someone asked, do you ever get notes like that prop worked great in the rehearsal report? Um, Sometimes every once in a while I do, or a director will say something or things like that. It's not always things that are wrong necessarily. So it's just like,
And
oh, we love this thing or whatever.
Yeah.
we get thank you for dot 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 a lot.
Yeah.
But it does lead me to something that like I talk about with the stage manager a lot about specificity in their notes. Like, don't tell me you want this to be bigger than what you have, because depending on what it is, I probably didn't measure it before I brought it over there. So tell me that you want it to be 12 inches by 8 inches or some measure that I can then pull from, because we work across campus in 3 different buildings. So I don't want to have to go to the rehearsal hall to measure something to then go back to my stock and pull it.
Yeah, specificity is really important.
And tell me if you need it tomorrow, if you need it next week. because that'll make a big difference.
Yeah, I think speaking, we were talking earlier like how all of our rehearsal processes are different. Um, uh, like at the festival, like Cat, things are happening so fast. Like they need the thing the next day to make sure it works. We try to get them a rehearsal prop for any ads in 48 hours. So if they go back and work the scene again, they at least have something in the room to try and give us some feedback on as much as we can. But it's kind of different depending on the theater and again the timeline and things like that. So work with your stage management team to kind of figure out, yeah, priorities. What do you need? Like if you're trying to figure out a bit and you want to figure out if you can like walk the chair over, then let us know you're trying to figure out a bit so we can give you a chair that we're not precious about or maybe the show chair until you figure out the business, and then we can discuss how to make the real prop do what you want it to do. So we're not destroying stock while you're
Oh,
doing.
see, this is I was constantly struggling with like talk to me when you want to throw something before you actually throw it. Like I get these rehearsals that are just like, oh, we decided we don't want to throw this basket on the ground and we broke the basket. It's like that's because it's it's not made to be thrown. We can have this conversation and then I can make something that is throwable for you to destroy.
Yep.
And
Totally.
we've defaulted to acrylic and non-breakable things wherever we
Mm,
possibly can. And then
yeah.
when they've proven that it could be a real glass thing, then we can talk about it. But they get acrylic until they can prove that they won't break it.
Right.
Ben
Um.
has
Oh yeah.
Ben and Utah Shakes has a really awesome tool that they use for this, which they have these little post-it notes that I'm actually going to adopt at U of M for when I send things to rehearsal. And it's basically a post-it note that tells you what the prop is, if it's a rehearsal or if it's a real prop, and then we need feedback on this thing, or here's some notes about it. And it's not something that I would use when I was in summer stock because things move too fast. But now that I am the stock administrator at U of M and I take things to rehearsals and they're in rehearsals for a long time, I'm going to adopt it there so that we can get information from the directors and the stage management, hopefully faster, and they have a better understanding of what they have in front of them.
You just stick it on the prop.
Yeah. Stick it on the prop or rubber band it, or if they're small props, we'll put them in like Ziploc bags or things. It's just because we work, 8 to 6, and stage manager comes in and works noon to midnight. And so we're dropping stuff off in the morning, but and there's no stage manager or PA in the room for us to talk to. So it's a way to be like, here's all the stuff, and this is the information we need or information that you need to make these things function, that kind of stuff. So it's just a way to kind of keep that communication going. So ASMs know, like, oh, this is the show prop now, or oh, they want us to show this to the director and see if it's what they want, or things like that. So I can.
I inherited those, we call them hold tags. I inherited them from Sarah Pugh, who used to work at ATC as well. And I have found them super helpful because it also then tells stage managers like, oh, this is going into the room and it is a rehearsal one, and we all know that. Or like this is potential, or this is, et cetera, et cetera. And I found it super helpful because we always, we do our prop loaded and then I get texts from stage managers saying which notebook is this. And it I was just like, well, it's the black one, it's this one. And then it just removes a lot of questions. I found it very helpful. Yeah.
Awesome. We have two more questions in the chat, which may take us the last 10 minutes. To discuss notes, do you send emails like on each note? How do you get answers? If the director needs to approve things, like if you have different
Yeah.
versions, do you put them on the list? Do you put links in? Like, how do you deal with like trying to get communication back and forth in a timely manner on things that are on the list?
That's totally.
So
I've had that discussion with people. Like, do you ask all your questions in one email, or like do separate emails? Because some directors don't read it all if the email's too long, but then other directors miss emails if you do it all in each individual. I usually like say see my responses in red, and I'll just highlight the notes from the report, and then I'll put my questions or notes or whatever underneath, and then they usually respond back like, okay, see my responses in blue, and so you kind of have them
yeah,
on the say all in one thing.
we do a lot of that too. We've also developed uh, what our stage manager calls bonus content, where if there's more information about something, but she doesn't want to make the rehearsal report 12 pages long, she'll just send me a separate email of, here's what I didn't put in the report that might be helpful to you, which is really great because I always tell them you can't give me too much information about something. And then we've gotten in the habit of most days touching base before rehearsal, just for like 10 minutes. I'll go over there, drop off whatever's new, and check in with them and clarify anything we need to clarify. Sometimes a 10-minute conversation can save you like a dozen emails.
Yeah. I very much like Sarah. We respond to every single note in the prop section every single day, which is hard when you have 6 shows in rehearsal. It takes a little bit of time in the morning, but it goes to the director, the designer, and the stage management team. And then if there's a costume question, we will add costumes. If there's a lighting practical question, we'll add lighting. But so we have little groups that we can respond to. And even if it's just like, thank you for the thing, we're like, okay. And we put all of our notes in different color. And yeah, if we have questions, they generally respond back. But it's a way to like make sure, one, that they know that we've seen everything and responded so that, again, that communication is happening.
Yeah, I used to like just pick who I thought it applied to, but now I just reply all to rehearsal reports because then if there's somebody that I don't realize is involved with the decision on something, like everybody has the information and they can reply and be like, oh, I have input on this. But
We
I don't know.
we used to respond to every note and every rehearsal report, and we've gotten out of the habit of it and sort of just had the conversation of the assumption is that we got the note and we're working on it. And if we have questions, we'll ask them. Because it was just so many extra emails when sometimes it was, yes, note taken, yes, note taken. So we've sort of gotten away from responding to everything to kind of cut down on the number of emails a little bit.
It's a policy at ATC that they introduced recently that we reply all to all their reports, which is a little much, but it's helpful to see what other people are working on. And then I've also made a master report document, if that makes sense. So I'll have the date and number of the rehearsal report, and then I'll copy all of our notes in every day, respond to it in there, and then just copy it into the email and reply all. And then that allows me to like go through and highlight them again and say like, oh, this is green, this is blue. I usually just do green and red for done and undone. And that's just for me and my team. But it is, yeah, it makes me a little embarrassed sometimes because I always usually have the most notes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Always, props always has the most notes.
yes, yes.
There was a question in the notes or in the comments about set dressing
Yep.
that I just want to talk about whether we document every piece of set dressing. My practice is if it needs to be a specific item, then I'll document it in the list. Like we need a picture of George Washington, then I put that in the list. If it's we need 3 shelves full of stuff, then I put shelf dressing and make a note of how many feet of shelves or whatever, so that I don't have to list every single item individually and make my props list 14 pages.
I do like a quick note in the notes section of like shelf two, and I'll put beakers, books, and botanicals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do that too. Like it depends on the show. Like some designers are like they give me a rendering that has every piece of wall dressing that they want, and so I can just create exactly from that. And some are just kind of like, and then there's shelves with stuff on them. So if it's very specified, I'll put in my notes section. It's like, shelf dressing is what's listed as, but then it will say like what the items are.
What
The other thing I've started doing as a companion to the props list is I have a Google slide deck where I start with information from the designer and then things get broken down more and more as we move on to where a lot of the bigger pieces of furniture will have their own slide and it'll have the fabric choice and all of the detail information about it on that slide. And then often I'll PDF that and attach it to the prop list so that it's there. But as a way to keep all of the information about each prop kind of And so we'll have a set dressing slide where we have the things that the designer liked, we'll have pictures of what we have in stock, and it's kind of all in one image.
That's amazing, Liz. Do you don't find that you're just constantly doing uh, computer work when you have all of
Well,
this
I mean,
information?
to a certain point, but also it saves me time because everybody has all of the same information and it's easy to share. Um, so yes and no. I find that having the clarity in those slides helps save a lot of back and forth and questions and getting the wrong thing or the wrong color and that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
Cool. Okay, two questions. We're going to go Kat, Sarah, Liz, me, Faith. Yes or no? Do members of the SM team come by the shop on a regular basis? Kat,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Liz,
No.
me, no, Faith.
We have a quick meeting before rehearsal starts, and then they never come back, hopefully.
Okay.
Respectfully.
Do your SMs include everyone on their rehearsal reports? Kat,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
me, yes, Faith.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I think that is basically everything. We were just about
There was one real quick. There's what if the director isn't available to talk in person?
to fire
And
them.
I just wanted to touch on that like ours varies by show. There are shows where I will not talk to the director one-on-one for the entire rehearsal process. Everything goes through the stage managers. There are other shows where the director is there 45 minutes of rehearsal every day, and we talk almost every day. It sort of depends on how that director likes to work.
Yeah, but if the director isn't communicating, like, uh, I don't know. It's
I
like,
mean, that's part of their job, right? Like
yes,
they have to
exactly.
be communicating with the team.
That's when I rely on the stage managers and the production manager to get that information for me.
Yeah.
There's also like a certain art to knowing how to interact with directors and kind of, get speak to them in a way that you get the information that you need. And every director's a little bit different. So you kind of have to feel that out at the beginning.
And if they're really not being forthcoming, I just ask it in the production meeting and make everyone wait while I go through tiny details that no one else cares about.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. I
Liz?
was really sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Kat.
I was just going to say that what Sarah said is like 100% true, especially with theater like mine specifically, where you have to move so fast. You have to get really good at clocking what kind of director you're working with. Um, and it really becomes an art as much as your prop list does of your way of communicating with your stage management team and your directors and understanding how they communicate as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's their show. So, like, it's like, I once or twice I've had to have a conversation with the director else. I'm like, dude, come on, like, I'm trying to help you out, but you're not giving me the information I need. So, like, and sometimes with designers too, it's like I'm working for you, but if you're not giving me the information, then the product is going to suffer. So let's get on the same page and just communicate. Awesome. I will say that a lot of the stuff that we showed tonight, we've put together a whole bunch of information in a folder that if you signed up for this, Karen will be sending out a link along with the little survey we want you to fill out, but a link to that so you can download versions of the lists. There's actually like a 9-page document that USF uses, so all the stage managers know our numbering system and all of that stuff. That's included. Some other things are in there as well. And Karen also made a great list of all of the other spaminars that we have talked about tonight, the Excel one and the Airtable ones and things like that. So you can check all those out as well. We're out of time, so I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. There's nothing better than building a little collective knowledge. We have more spaminars in the works, so keep your eye out for announcements. There's actually one in 2 months about you have the list, now what? So it's kind of the next step in this process. So this was interesting to you. Check that out as well. And keep topics and suggestions coming. We want to keep doing these. We want to do stuff that you guys want to hear. So if you have ideas, fill out the survey so we know what you want to learn about. If you're a working prop manager at a nonprofit theater, opera, children's theater, or an educator teaching props, we'd love to have you join SPAM. Just head to our website and click on the link in the chat to sign up. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Those links will be in the chat as well. A big shout out to Spam and our amazing members who make these sessions happen: Nikki Kulis, Jen McClure, Amy Peter, Sarah Pugh, Karen Robbie, as well as our amazing panel, Liz Bear, Kat, Sarah, and Faith. Thank you for joining us tonight and having this great conversation. And thanks everyone again for joining us, Prop On, and we will see you next time.
Bye.